I thought I heard the mewing of an ass-eared kitten. My husband should have stamped on you when he had the chance.
I did not enjoy Assassin's Creed Valhalla Dawn of Ragnarok. That does not mean that there isn't some fun to be had, but overall, this expansion feels like the worst one so far. However, had they removed the Assassin's Creed name and gone for a completely new IP in a new direction, this could have been so much more, and I feel that it is the problem Ubisoft is having with Assassin's Creed at this moment. Don't get me wrong, I love Assassin's Creed and I've been open to new and different ideas Ubisoft has had with the franchise, but I feel that they are running into a wall over and over again, kind of forgetting the basics of Assassin's Creed, not being able to climb over that wall. Now let's get into Ragnarok. In the most ambitious expansion in franchise history, Eivor must embrace their destiny as Odin, the Norse god of battle and wisdom, unleash new divine powers as you embark on a desperate quest through a breathtaking world, complete a legendary Viking saga, and save your son in the face of the god's doom. That is at least what the description says of Dawn of Ragnarok. Calling it the most ambitious expansion is a bit of an overstatement, and I'll get into that in a moment. Dawn of Ragnarok is the third expansion to Valhalla, Wrath of the Druids and Siege of Paris being the first two, which focused solely on Eivor by the way, as this expansion takes you through yet another vision to a new location, Swartalheim, as you play as Havi in following his journey to save his son. I say this because during the opening sequence of Ragnarok, they refer to my character as he and him, regardless of playing male or female Eivor. After the opening mission, the world of Swartalheim opens up, and I've got to admit that it is by far one of the most beautiful locations Ubisoft has ever created. It felt relaxing to jump onto a mount and just ride through this open area of Swartalheim and see what this world has to offer. Going from a hot lava-filled area to a lush green jungle followed by an icy cold snowstorm was quite the treat, and it was a world I wish I could explore on its own, perhaps in a game of its own name that's not tied to Assassin's Creed. Havi is given a new item called the Hygge Grip, which grants him 5 new abilities, most of them only really being used to solve puzzles. You can only have 2 active abilities at a time, and you can swap them out from enemy bodies, who essentially drops these abilities. The first ability, Power of the Raven, allows you to transform into a raven and soar across the environment. It's really useful when trying to reach new areas or higher locations instead of climbing all the way. Power of Muspelheim transforms Havi's skin into magma, thus Odin appears as one of the enemies, which allows him to walk past heavily guarded areas or avoid damage from fire and lava. Power of Winter is the exact same but with ice. The Power of Jotunheim ability seems to be taken straight out of Shadow of War, as Odin transports to an area which he shoots with his arrows while dodging short distances. The final one is Power of Rebirth, which allows Odin to resurrect fallen enemies to fight for him. All of these powers are pretty interesting, however I found myself only really using 2, the Raven and Magma ability, because it made it easy to move across areas, and most enemies are made from fire, thus I took way less damage. The other abilities are only really needed when I wanted to solve puzzles or find hidden gear, and when you wake up from this dream world, Eivor cannot use any of these abilities in England or anywhere else, as it is essentially locked to Swartalheim. You see, the problem is that Ubisoft basically created this world around using these powers, so using the Raven ability, for example, in England or Norway would break the game, so the easiest way to avoid that would be to lock them to this world. It made them almost feel pointless because once I was done with Ragnarok and went back to England, the only thing I could take with me was gear. That is another problem Dawn of Ragnarok has, leveling. You see, you can access Ragnarok pretty early on in the game, and I believe the level requirement is around 320, but you can use a booster for the expansion world, which will boost you to the required level during this new area, but drop your level back down should you exit this dreamy area. Thus you can keep the experience and loot you gained, but you immediately drop down to your prior level plus the experience you gained. However, I had cleared most of Valhalla before starting this expansion, thus I was extremely overpowered throughout most of this area, and sure, you can bump up the difficulty level, but all it does is make enemies damage sponges and nothing more. The design of this new gear is unique, and I'm sure Ubisoft will add more to their store, but again, it doesn't really add much to the main game. Unlike Odyssey, where the DLC content added to the end of the main story, Dawn of Ragnarok doesn't really add much to Eivor's story, as you already know where Odin's journey goes. Thus, I kept asking myself what was the point of this expansion. Dawn of Ragnarok also has some of the most boring and mind-numbing missions. In a few instances, I had to escort the world's slowest dwarves from point A to point B, and often I even had to carry them, but I found myself so uninterested in the story at the time. This expansion essentially has two main story arcs, one that follows Javi and his enemies, and one that is more connected to the dwarves. Although I liked their shelters and some dialogue were interesting, looking at the dwarves, it feels as if Ubisoft just took a character model, shrunk down their body, but kept their head sizes the same. The new Adgear weapon is a ton of fun to play with, but often I felt that their hit detection were a bit off, as I had a number of bugs in this expansion. There is apparently a day 1 patch, so I cannot speak of that at this moment. You can do raids again, which was enjoyable in the main game, but even when I boarded my ship, the crew calls me Eivor despite me being Javi or Odin, so Ubisoft didn't even re-record those lines. Many designs of this expansion just has me puzzled. For example, introducing the concept of magma and that it can essentially kill you in seconds makes fighting enemies more interesting, but literally moments later, they give you an ability that makes you immune to magma. What? Furthermore, certain puzzles require you to use certain abilities, and instead of letting you solve them yourselves, there is literally a dead body lying right by the puzzle with an ability that you need to use for that particular puzzle, so basically they show you which power you need to use and provide it to you on a silver platter. Why not let you figure it out by yourself? I am not trying to make this comparison as I've not yet played Elden Ring, but that game doesn't give you anything at all, and given that this released shortly after a game which really makes you feel immersed, I feel that Dawn of Ragnarok is really going to have a hard time finding its audience. Dawn of Ragnarok does have some enjoyable moments, and it's really fun to fly around as a raven, but ultimately, if you finished the main game, there is very little value you might find in this expansion. I actually enjoyed Wrath of the Druids and Siege of Paris much more, as I felt connected and invested in Eivor and not Odin. Additionally, Ubisoft is asking $40 for this expansion. They stated that there are over 35 hours of gameplay, which isn't really true. I finished the main story in roughly 12 hours, which included all of these side missions, and spent easily another 10 hours or so on collectibles and getting every armor piece in the game, so 35 hours is a bit of an exaggeration. Given that the season pass of Valhalla can be bought for that price, not to mention that a game like Red Dead Redemption 2 often goes on sale for lower than that, it'll be a really hard sell at this price. I did enjoy the Valkyrie Trials, which is an arena-like area where you fight different bosses for a certain currency, which then can be used to buy unique weapons and gear, but once you've bought everything, there is really no point in replaying that arena. Dawn of Ragnarok is a beautiful but disappointing addition to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and ultimately an expansion that left me wondering if it's time to set the sun on Valhalla. I'd like to thank Ubisoft Nordic for providing me with a review key on PlayStation 5, and for more gaming content, check out the rest of my channel. If you enjoyed this video, then give me a thumbs up. If you dislike it, then give me a thumbs down, but please tell me why so I can improve my videos. My name is Frank, I'm the RedTieGuy, and frankly, thank you for watching. Catch you guys in the next video.